Welcome one, welcome all to another developer interview here on the Xbox Expansion Pass. Today I am joined by Raymond Teo, founder of Secret Base, the studio behind Double Dragon Gaiden. I'm your host, Luke Lohr, the Insipid Ghost. Raymond, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I'm excited to talk about Double Dragon Gaiden. I've been playing it quite a bit. I have so many questions, but I first want to know a little bit about Secret Base, starting with where you're located, because right now you are staying up quite late to talk to me.
Yes, Secret Base. I'm actually located in Singapore,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't think we get a lot of games coming from Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm one of the very few developers here, lah. And Secret Base is mostly myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I for Double Dragon Gaiden, I'm working with my buddy Shen Yu, who's working on the programming side of stuff, and I'm in charge of all the other things from artwork, design, production management, that kind. And of course, like the game obviously isn't just made by two-person, so there's a lot of other freelancers involved, right? But Secret Base is pretty much just me.
Just you, man. That's incredible. A 12-hour time difference between where I'm located and you. So you are putting out just the massive amounts of work. Is it tough to develop a game and coordinate with different contractors around the world, or are they all located near you?
No, and that's part of the reason why I'm so awake at this hour. Yeah,
Hmm.
because I do work with freelancers from all over the world and all in different time zone.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, a lot of them actually come from opposite time zone from where I am. And
Mm.
that's yeah, that's sort of make it a little bit harder to coordinate everybody, but then you sort of find a momentum and find a workflow for that.
Gotcha. I can imagine. I can imagine for sure. Now, looking at Secret Base's kind of portfolio there, you guys worked on a title called Streets of Red. And in watching the trailer for Streets of Red, it looks like a lot of the elements for that game kind of made its way into Double Dragon. Am I too far out of pocket for thinking that?
No, a lot of experience were actually taken from Streets of Red. I think that was the first beat 'em up that I did,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, we experimented with a lot of structures in that game, and that
Mm-hmm.
experience carried over here, which allowed us to then uh, focus on some of the new innovation that we see here in this game. Rather than because every time you try to innovate on something, there's a lot of trial and error, and you don't know how long it's gonna take. This being a licensed game, usually there's a timeline that's tied to it. So you gotta make use of the lesson you have learned in the past and then like build upon it.
Interesting. So what kind of lessons do you think you took from Streets of Red or any other game that you worked on and kind of made its way into Double Dragon?
Well, a common theme in my game that I have designed since quite long ago has always been how to make a arcadish game loop, because I like to make games that are based off retro games, the kind of games that we play when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done platformers in the past, shooters, things like that, and they always sort of have a arcadish loop around the game. So I've
Mm-hmm.
always been exploring how players can actually uh, play the game repeatedly, but yet still have fun and still eager to come back to play more, which I think was an important point for any games that have their roots in the arcade, because back then the games weren't super long and you would
Mm-hmm.
usually go back to them again and again and then like spend another token or two. So that's the fundamental of a lot of the design ideas that that was brought forward from one game to the other, and finally to Double Dragon Gaiden.
Gotcha. That makes good sense there. When you think about Double Dragon Gaiden, what would you say the elevator pitch is on the game uh, that makes it special?
Elevator pitch. I think uh, If I were to really shrink it down, I would say it's Double Dragon with tag team elements
Mm-hmm.
and high replayability.
Mm-hmm.
That's the shortest I can go.
That makes good sense because in playing Gaiden, uh, the tag team element to me feels super unique. Kind of the Double Dragon legacy is to have two brothers kind of going through and other characters, but two. But this tag element to me seems to make the game really open up in a different way. Can you talk about the influences for bringing kind of that tag element to combat, because it's usable as a way of like knocking down enemies and uh, enhancing combat, I would say.
Mm, so it's been a while since I first came out with that idea. So my memory of
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing is a little bit jumbled up altogether, right? So can't quite remember the timeline. But I do know that I was at some point looking at how, because the whole idea of the game wasn't so much to take either one of the classic franchise, one of the classic game from the franchise to say, okay, this is the best one, and then let's make a polished version of this. This
Mm-hmm.
is very much like how can we reinterpret some of the elements from the game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Double Dragon, the name itself, double has a double meaning, right? So how can we play with that? And that sort of eventually allows me to get the idea of making it a tag team system.
Mm-hmm.
It is also interesting to say that Double Dragon 3 on the NES actually have a system where it allows you to pause the game and switch another character. At
Mm-hmm.
the same time, the Double Dragon Advance, I think a lot of the hardcore Double Dragon fans love that game, and it also has this game mode where it allows you to play as two characters on the screen at the same time, and you press a
Mm-hmm.
button and you switch from controlling Billy to Jimmy, and you press
Mm-hmm.
a button and you switch again, but they are both existing on the screen at the same time. So that's sort of the roots over there, and I feel that that's something that we can play with, and there's already a lot of established design in versus fighter. So games like Double Dragon Fighter Z
Mm-hmm.
or Marvel versus Capcom, they have the tech mechanic, and there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of interesting use there. How can we bring that into a beat them up? So it was quite a natural fit once we start integrating into the game.
It felt very natural. I totally agree. It felt very natural, especially when I found myself kind of gauging my meter. When is it smart to bring the other player in and let the other one's health kind of regenerate and such? But tied to the tag element, at least to me, was the roguelite elements of like, as I go through and beat a boss, I can get an upgrade for a character, and sometimes that upgrade might mean they heal faster or come back in and hit harder or knock down enemies. And I feel like you guys kind of linked the tag elements to uh I don't know if they're called, if you would think of them as skill trees, but like the skill sets that you can build for your tag characters.
Mhm. So yes, I think the tech mechanic, because it's very fundamental to the whole design, and it was one of the first thing that was presented in the pitch that we share with Arc System Works when we first pitched the game. So when we started working on it, that was one of the first system that we implemented. And when we work on everything else, it's always something that, okay, let's see how we can tie it back to the tagging again. Is this something that has some connection over there? If there is, then let's try to strengthen it. If that isn't, is there some space where we can actually connect them together? And I think you'll see that in all the system in the game. Very few system is a standalone system. They
Mm-hmm.
all interconnect with each other, and one thing's always require you to consider the how it works with something else.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you, especially given that you give the player from the outset the chance to decide which bosses or gangs they would like to take on first. And as a result of beating them, they're pretty easy to beat on the first one. The others strengthen themselves and prepare for your attack on them, and it gets progressively harder. I made a terrible choice, by the way, in my path, and I am struggling with my final boss. But it that player choice really does seem to enhance what you talked about earlier, that replayability element.
Yes, again, because like I say, well, the other thing is also because like I myself is uh, I do enjoy some beat 'em up that are a bit longer, but
Mhm,
usually, as we grow older, my playtime is limited to about 2 hours, or
mhm,
less. So I sort of wanted to make a game that is like fun for that one session. Like today, I have a bit of time. Let's play the game for a single session. So make it a little bit smaller, good for all the audience that we know. Double Dragon fans are a little bit older by now, so we want to make shorter sessions at the same time that you can come back and play again and again, which is why we have the idea of having the different routes. That
mhm,
when you play a single route, you don't actually see the whole game. You
mhm,
want to choose another one, right? Uh, and also having the different characters that you can unlock and choose, and that also give you different combination of characters. So you
mhm,
want to actually have the correct combination of characters to go in, and this combination might work well for this route, but it might not work as well on that route. And then like
mhm.
play around with all that and explore and see what works best.
You guys have, I believe, a total of 14 characters. Is that right?
Uh, 13.
13. Okay, 13 characters. Do you have a favorite?
Um,
It's not a fair question.
well, I create all of them, so it's a little bit hard for me to pick. It's like telling me to pick between my 13 babies. Yeah.
Mhm,
But I think, but that's I think one of the good thing, because I spoke to a lot of players, and everybody sort of tell me that they have different favorite characters,
mhm,
and each one of them argue that, oh, this character is too strong, but
mhm,
everybody is talking about a different character. And then
mhm,
somebody would say that, for example, Billy is the weakest character, and the other guy will say that Billy is the strongest character. And I think that's great because everybody finds something interesting about the characters that they like, and that tells me that I've managed to make the character different and unique enough for people to
mhm.
have a strong opinion about it, which I enjoy.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm so basic. I like the 2 standard starters. They're my favorites. That was my, way to go.
It's Billy and Jimmy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I like them both. I like them both. Um, I'm curious, how long have you been working on Double Dragon Gaiden? Like, what was the development run for it?
uh, I so we started right before the actual development start right before the pandemic starts. So I think
Mhm,
that's about 3.5 years for now,
mhm,
by now. But before that, we pitched about a year before we started working on it. So during the pitch, I was already because we have to discuss with Arc System Works about the idea, what's good, what's not, what's our production plan, things like that. So we're working on it, but not in a full capacity.
mhm.
So but the full capacity of working on it is about 3.5 years.
Gotcha. I ask that because in recent years we've seen, to my liking, a wonderful surge of retro style beat 'em ups, from like compilations like the Cowabunga collection to Shredder's Revenge for TMNT, Streets of Rage. We've seen this kind of wonderful, I think, revival in those beat 'em ups, but in newer versions. And Double Dragon Gaiden fits right in alongside that, and it feels good and yet unique. And so I'm curious if uh, there was any running parallel to that. Like, was there any influence from those recent retro revivals, or is it just coincidental? Because I feel like it's coming back in a lot of ways.
Uh, I actually looking at the timeline. So for us,
Hmm.
the by the time that when we were pitching, we didn't know that any of this project was going on, right?
Gotcha.
Even
Okay.
even River City Girls, which was announced pretty early on when we started working on it,
Hmm.
we didn't know anything about it.
Hmm.
It was also an IP owned by Arc System Works,
Hmm.
and they have very close ties with Double Dragon. But I didn't know anything about it, so I was quite
Hmm.
surprised to see it. Uh, and quite honestly, because our ideas, for starters, our ideas were tied down pretty early during the pitching process,
Hmm.
and also, um, we were going in a very different route compared to the others. So I think the others sort of took the approach where they take the franchise and then make a mega
Mm-hmm.
polished version of that. You know, we on the other hand took the direction where we want to say let's take certain elements and reinterpret what that means, and
Mm-hmm.
then like try to innovate on different aspect of it. So I think the approach is quite different. By the time we hear the news the same time as everybody else when
Mm-hmm.
it was announced on YouTube or whatever, and most of the time we were already um, so very much in the middle of our own process that is very little that we can maneuver to suddenly change a direction. But we were at least able to see a lot of the players' reaction, what they
Mm-hmm.
like and what they don't like, and we try our best to take some of those lesson learned from players' feedback and all that kind of stuff. So a bit hard yeah, to change immediately, and I think like a lot of people are under the impression that a game wouldn't take too long to make, like if
Mm-hmm.
but that's not the case. Something like this, it was already working all the while behind the scene while all those games are being released. Yeah.
Gotcha. And that was kind of the core of my question too. Is
Mm.
d- does it matter that those things are also in the works, right? And to see that Double Dragon is finding success as well as these other games shows there's a genuine interest in the genre, which makes me really excited. Now, you are working with an IP that is established. Double Dragon's been around for a long time, lots of attempted revivals, lots of uh, uh, sequels and such. Double Dragon Gaiden has a unique style with its tag elements, with its roguelike elements, but it's also got, to me, a really cool visual style that I think makes it stand out, even amongst these newer retro beat 'em ups. Can you talk a little bit about the art design that you guys settled on, and uh, what other art styles you guys might have tried out at first?
Mm, the art style of course, it got a lot to do with my personal art style, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always explored a similar style. At one point, there is I was experimenting on different mockups. I did mockups of Avengers beat 'em up. I did a mockup with Golden Axe beat 'em up.
Mm-hmm.
This was just me having time and playing around with it. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
2015 or something like that. You know, so and if you search on the internet, you will see it, and it's share a similar DNA there. So
I feel like I've seen some of those mock-ups now that you're saying that. I feel like I saw some of those screenshots in
I will send
researching.
you an example after this.
Cool.
But yeah, like I was saying, like it got a lot to do with my own personal style. But at the same time, I was during my research, I was looking at some of the games that from the franchise that inspired that I enjoy, right, as a kid. And Double Dragon 2 was the one that stand out to me most on the NES. You know,
Mm.
so it is I think the NES visuals is a little bit more. The proportion is not as well defined as the arcade version. On
Mhm.
top of that, there was this game Combat Tribe that was also by the original techno team. I don't think they were the same guys that did Double Dragon, but it has a
Mhm.
Double Dragon DNA to it. And I always imagine that if uh, the team were to make Double Dragon 3 for the arcade themselves, that
Mhm.
would be the visuals that they go for. And if you're familiar with that game, you can sort of see the similarity in their approach and mine. Uh, Eventually, the arcade version of Double Dragon 3 was actually being outsourced, and it had a very different art style compared to the rest of the franchise.
Mm.
So I thought for myself, this is a good time for me to try something in that proportion or visual styling. Apart from that, there was also the idea that we wanted to create 13 characters, and each one
Mhm.
of them is going to be unique. So we couldn't make the characters super detailed. We went with the approach where we simplify the characters a little bit, but we make them more highly animated. And on top of that, the it allow us to experiment much more with the abilities of the characters, which means we can afford to animate a lot of different moves. We put it into the game, and then we try which one is fun. And the one that's not fun, we can remove it and we keep only the one that are fun. So you also got to do a lot with the design and the production aspect of things. Yeah. So if I make a character that's like super detailed, your courage to trial and error is much less,
Mhm.
because everything that is wrong, you really struggle if you say like let's just go along with it. Like, but we don't have to do that here. We're able to like quickly iterate and improve. Yeah.
That makes good sense, and there's a visual flair, I think, to Double Dragon Gaiden that makes it special. From when you hit with some characters, you see like the words "blam" pop up, or like there's a little like air effect when they hit the ground. Like those little details to me seem to make the game a lot more surreal. You also guys, you made a choice to do things like have the life bars on the characters and play with some of the special moves here and there. And to me, that's fun and interesting. Did you toy around with like different visual representations to show damage or special moves or things like that?
Um, we tried the more traditional method
Hmm.
where we keep the the gameplay area as clean as possible without
Hmm.
HUD, without HUD. Uh, and that's where we started with. During the playtest, we start to see how much player actually understand. So it's a
Hmm.
little bit hard for the players, especially the younger players, to actually follow the game, because they don't have that experience in the past where they play these kind of genres of games.
Hmm.
So, but then there's also other reason. For example, things like so we have these little upgrades that you can purchase, and we say is that, oh, your strength increased by 50%, and you
Hmm.
don't see a number, and you just don't understand how it have help you, and you don't feel that it's a worthly purchase. So small things like this eventually help us realize that okay, we need some more information, and so that the player is not struggling constantly to look up on the screen
Hmm.
to try to figure out what's going on. Small things like that. But also on the other hand, you mentioned about the little text that shows "bam" when you
Yeah.
hit somebody, right? So we wanted to give the game a little bit of a manga feel.
Mm.
So uh, because I remember like there were some booklets that comes with the, I think it was in within the instruction menu when you purchase like Double Dragon 3 especially. And then there was this little manga booklet which I like. So I sort of feel that, oh, it would be great that if we can go this direction where Double Dragon sort of have a more manga tie-in look to it. So we experiment with it a little bit, and you can see that the mission select is also sort of a bit of a manga panel.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That's really cool. And if you're watching on YouTube, you're able to watch the trailer and B-roll guides. You can see what I'm talking about. There's a lot of really cool detail in that to me is just it makes it more immersive and helps it set itself apart from these other very fun retro beat 'em up styles, which is neat. Um, I don't know what I want to ask with this specifically, so I'll let you interpret it. But sound design is, I think, very important in games. And in beat 'em ups, there's this meaty, fun, like hit sound that you guys have in there. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the sound design in Double Dragon.
So for the sound design, I would say that so remember I mentioned just now, I'm working with my buddy Shen Yu, who's the programmer. I guess
Hmm.
that's not completely true, because he is also the one that's working on a lot of the sound effects. And he's working on the programming aspect of stuff for this game. But he's
Hmm.
a very experienced game developer. He
Hmm.
do everything from game design, artwork to programming. It's just that
Hmm.
this time around he's taking a bit of a backseat to focus just on the programming. But at the
Hmm.
same time, whenever necessary, he does the sound effect. And I think he really came up with a lot of the crunchy, melee punches that everybody is loving.
Hmm.
So I think it's amazing, and I think it's also interesting that Shen Yu on the side of his very busy schedule just throw something out, but then it
Hmm.
seems to work so well.
Gotcha. Well, it's certainly is additive to the game. It really does make it enjoyable. You guys are the game is out now. It's on PlayStation. It's on PC. It's on Xbox One and Series SX. It's on Switch. Is it impactful to development to prep for that many systems, or was that always the vision? Did it end up that way? Is that something you worked on or a port studio worked on?
Um, it does need a lot of uh, I think when we were working on it, we were quite aware, that we need to deliver the game on all these different platforms,
Hmm.
uh, and before a certain timeline. So because again, because this is a licensed game, from the very beginning, we know that we need to launch a game before a certain date. So when we were working on it, we were already very aware. Again, it was Shen Yu's experience, so he know how we can structure it, and all the things that we need to look out for when you try to bring a game to all these different platforms. So very early on when we were working on it, we were already taking steps. Apart from that, we also had the help of so we mostly work on the game ourselves in the
Hmm.
first 2.5 years. Sorry, maybe 2.5 years to about 3 years. We work on the project ourselves.
Hmm.
And then the game is almost done, and then we came to Modus, our publisher, to
Hmm.
help us with marketing the game, getting
Hmm.
QA, and then also finding a potting house.
Hmm.
To help with the work. And the potting house is our close friend Jason from Initori's Games,
Hmm.
and they are the one that has been working on a lot of the different ports that and it is also again another studio in a different country that I have to work with. So
Hmm.
thanks to their experience, that makes things so much easier and allow us to focus on the game, because as developers we want to focus on the gameplay stuff and then have
Hmm.
somebody else take care of the porting, the controller setup, the leaderboards and stuff like that. So that was good. That really help us get the game out in a good quality, on time.
Yeah, absolutely, and that would make good sense. Um, One of the things I really want to celebrate with Double Dragon is one, there's couch co-op play so people can play together, but also you guys have these really cool sliders that will help you change your experience and difficulty, so that a player can try something out, find out they like or don't like something, and adjust it according to those sliders. Can you talk a little bit about that player choice that you guys have in your game now with
Yes,
difficulty and such?
yeah, that's I think we call it the new game modifier. So it's something that you adjust before starting each run of a game, and it
Mhm.
allows you to adjust different aspect of the difficulty. And whenever you make something harder, the game actually allows you to get more rewards at the end of the session. So what
Mhm.
happens is that throughout the whole game, you based on your performance, you actually earn cash. And that
Mhm.
cash can be exchanged into token, which you uses to unlock characters. So by adjusting the sliders, like the more difficult you make the game, the easier it is for you to exchange your cash into tokens. And I think that really helps in quite a few different aspects, because like players that well players that
Now
feel
you
that
talk.
blackout players that feel that the game is too difficult on certain aspect, they can adjust it. And I think like a lot of players will be playing with their kids, or
Mhm.
the kids will be playing by themselves. The dad and mom might not be around to play with them, so they can adjust, they can adjust difficulty, and they can slowly tune things up as they learn and get better at it, because the game allows you to unlock different characters and have
Mhm.
different runs, and that allows you to go deeper and deeper into the system. So I think
Mhm.
like even for a lot of the hardcore gamers, they have come to me and tell me that they have been playing the games for So each session is about 2 hours, but people have been playing it for like 20 hours, 30 hours, and I think the
Mm-hmm.
longest one so far I've heard is like 40 hours. You know, and I think like they're really experimenting with that system to see like which is the perfect combination. And those people that has gone so far into it, they're just like pushing everything to the hardest and then just play it repeatedly. So I think that's amazing.
It's wild to me because in my mind those sliders are great for the dad and mom that love beat 'em ups growing up and now they want to play with their kids. And then on the other end of that, there are those people that are 40 hours in, they want the hardest thing possible. Um, and I struggle with the basic run of if I choose the boss in the wrong order, and these guys are hardcore going for it. That's so cool. I have a final question for you, and it's a mean question. It's a mean one,
Okay.
Raymond. Uh, are you happy with it now that it's out now?
Am I happy with it? I think the reality of it being out hasn't struck me yet. It has
Gotcha.
only been a few days. I'm still busy looking at the game, you know, trying to see like what people like and dislike, and then like, okay,
Hmm.
what can I fine tune? How can I improve? So I
Hmm.
think like I haven't had my break yet,
Hmm. Okay.
and I'm still struggling to find time. And I guess one day when I'm like not working on it for a few hours, and then like drinking my tea, I will suddenly realize that hey, the game is out there, you know, and then I can finally look at it as what it is.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I'm so happy for you guys at Secret Base, you and your friend. I'm happy for Modus to get this game out there. I so enjoy it. It's been such a good time playing with it and seeing it stand on its own while also next to some of these other retro beat 'em ups that are just enjoying a resurgence. So congratulations to you and to your team. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like listeners to know about?
Uh, Not really, except that the game is already out there, and if you haven't given it a shot, you know, I hope you maybe check out some of the videos, you know, see what some of the others that has been playing it, what they like about it, and if there's something that you like, then give it a shot.
There we go. Raymond Teo, Secret Base, Double Dragon Gaiden, Rise of the Dragons. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks again for having me.